The stadium was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It stretched far beyond the horizon, a massive bowl of metal and glass suspended in the void of space. The air was still silent, but the tension crackled with anticipation. Aliens from every corner of the galaxy filled the stands, their strange eyes glowing in the dim light. Some were tall and muscular, others small and fast, their bodies designed for the impossible feats that this game demanded. This was the intergalactic Zero-G Ball Tournament, the most prestigious event in the galaxy, where the best of the best showed off their skills. Zero gravity, endless space, and athletic perfection. The stakes couldn't have been higher. And standing at one end of the vast arena was Marcus Carter, a man who had no business being there. He was just human. Marcus wasn't tall like the others. He wasn't built like them either. His muscles, though strong, were dense and solid, too heavy for the weightless environment. His movements were awkward, his body not made for the way these aliens glided through the air. They were born for this. Marcus wasn't. The announcer's voice boomed through the arena, echoing in the empty air. Now we welcome our final competitor, the first and only human to ever enter the Zero-G Ball Tournament, Marcus Carter from Earth. There was a moment of silence, a pause that felt endless, and then the whispers started. The aliens around him exchanged glances, some smirking, others shaking their heads. A few even chuckled. What was a human doing here? They all knew the truth. He didn't belong. They were the perfect athletes their species made for this game. And Marcus, he was a curiosity, a mistake. He couldn't blame them for thinking that. He had seen it in their eyes ever since he arrived. He was out of place, out of his league. But here he was. Marcus looked down at his hands, fingers wrapped tightly around the small ball that floated before him. It wasn't like the basketballs from Earth. It was smooth, slightly transparent, almost alien in its design. The ball didn't weigh anything here. In the zero gravity, it just floated like a cloud, waiting for someone to make it move. He had trained for this moment, but it never felt real until now. His mind raced as he stared at the floating ball, his heart pounding in his chest. All those years of practicing in a small gym, in simulations that tried to mimic the gravity of alien worlds, felt like nothing compared to this. Marcus knew what the aliens thought. They had seen his attempts. They had seen him fall. His moves were slow. His body was heavier. His throws always off target. He wasn't fast enough and he wasn't graceful enough. But they didn't know what it meant to be human. They didn't know what it meant to fight for something when the odds were stacked against you. He took a deep breath. He wasn't going to back down, not now, not after everything he had fought for. His mind flashed back to the early days, the painful hours spent in training where every jump felt like he was being crushed by the weight of the universe. The falling, the disorientation, the frustration. It had been so hard. There were days when he wanted to quit, days when he thought maybe they were right, maybe he was too weak for this, but he had kept going, he had kept fighting. Marcus wiped the sweat from his brow, though it was nearly impossible to feel it in the cold air of the arena. He was ready. He had to be. The countdown started, echoing through the silence. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Marcus pushed off the ground, his body floating into the air. He felt the shift in gravity, the pull of space as he slowly moved toward the center of the arena. The ball followed him, hovering just in front of his chest. The hoop was far ahead, a distant target suspended in the void, but his focus was clear. He had one shot, one chance to prove to them all that humans were not so easily written off. He wasn't fast like them, he wasn't as sleek or as graceful, but he had something they didn't have. He had heart, he had grit. The ball wobbled slightly in front of him. His fingers closed around it, steadying it as he took aim. The crowd was watching. They were waiting for him to fail. He wouldn't fail, not this time, not after everything. Marcus pushed off once more, using the strength in his legs, his core, his willpower. The ball left his hand. It sailed through the air, a perfect arc. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. Time seemed to freeze as the ball floated toward the hoop. Would it go in? Would it miss? The answer was just ahead. The ball floated in the air, suspended in the vastness of the arena, a small, fragile thing against the overwhelming silence. Marcus's heart raced in his chest as he watched the ball travel toward the hoop. His breath was shallow, his entire body tense with the weight of the moment. For just a brief instant, he dared to believe it could happen. But then something shifted. The ball wobbled, its smooth surface losing its perfect form. Marcus cursed it under his breath. The tiny fluctuations in his grip, the imperfect angle of his throw, he had known it was too good to be true. His stomach dropped. The ball veered off course, grazing the rim before it bounced away into the empty air. It was gone. The crowd gasped, a wave of disappointment sweeping through the stands. The aliens around him exchanged quick, disappointed glances, their eyes cold with superiority. They were faster, lighter, more graceful. They had been born to do this. And Marcus, he was just a human, a man who didn't belong. He floated there, suspended in the zero-G, the harsh reality of failure sinking in. His chest tightened as the ball drifted out of reach. His shoulders slumped as if the weight of the entire stadium pressed down on him. He wanted to give up. He wanted to quit, to float away into the nothingness of space and pretend this never happened. But something inside him refused. He pushed against the feelings of defeat. No, he couldn't quit. Not now, not after everything. Marcus swam through the air, pulling his body toward the floating ball. His mind was a whirl of frustration, but his hands were steady as he gripped the ball again. He didn't look at the other competitors, didn't listen to the crowd. He couldn't afford to. He had one chance, one shot at redemption. The ball was back in his hands, but the pressure had only grown heavier. The doubts in his mind were louder now. What if he couldn't do it? What if this was it, his one and only chance? But then, something else broke through the fog of his fear. A memory. It was his father telling him to never give up. If you fall, get back up, keep fighting until you can't anymore. That's what makes you human. The words echoed in his head, simple yet powerful. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for every person who had ever been told they couldn't do something because they weren't good enough. He was fighting for every human who had ever been overlooked or underestimated. Marcus steadied himself, closing his eyes for a moment. He could do this. He had to do this. The other competitors were already preparing for their next turn, their eyes flickering over to him, their smirks barely hidden. It didn't matter. They could laugh. They could judge. But Marcus wasn't here to impress them. He was here to prove something else. The countdown began again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Marcus pushed off once more, propelling himself back into the air, his muscles straining against the pull of the gravity-less space. This time he felt it, his body moving more smoothly, more controlled. His focus sharpened. The hoop ahead of him seemed a little closer, a little more real. The ball hovered just in front of him, waiting. He aimed. He could hear the distant voices of the crowd, but they were far away now, like a whisper. All that mattered was the hoop, the ball, and his next move. With a deep breath, Marcus let the ball fly. This time there was no wobble, no hesitation. The ball shot through the air with a perfect arc, a clean, smooth line toward the hoop. Marcus's pulse raced as he watched it, his eyes locked on the path the ball was taking. It was a beautiful shot. It was exactly how he had practiced, how he had envisioned it over and over again. For a moment, everything was still. The ball was on its way. His heart beat like a drum in his chest. The hoop loomed closer. The ball was almost there. And then it happened. The ball swished through the net. The crowd exploded. A sound of pure disbelief and awe rippled through the arena. Marcus froze for a moment, unable to process what had just happened. He blinked, staring at the hoop, then back at the ball. Had he really done it? The announcer's voice came over the speakers, almost drowned out by the roar of the crowd. It's in! A perfect shot from Marcus Carter, the human from Earth. The aliens stared in shock. They had seen humans fail before, but they had never seen this. Marcus felt his chest swell, his heart thumping with the kind of joy he hadn't known in years. He had done it. Against all the odds, against all the expectations, he had made it. He had proven that a human could belong here in this arena just as much as anyone else. For a brief moment, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then the cheers began. Marcus floated in the stillness of the arena, the deafening roar of the crowd still echoing in his ears. His heart raced, pounding in his chest. He couldn't believe it. He had made the shot. He had actually done it. A perfect shot against all the odds. The ball had swished through the net just like he had dreamed. But as the cheers died down, the reality of the competition hit him again. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. He had made one basket, one perfect shot, but the game wasn't just about one moment. The other competitors were still watching him. They hadn't lost yet, and he wasn't even close to being done. Marcus took a deep breath, steadying himself as the arena started to settle. He pushed off from the ground, floating back to the center of the court. His arms felt tired, his legs sore from the strain of constant movement, but he couldn't let himself feel it. Not now. The next competitor was already preparing, a creature with 4 wings and shimmering skin moving gracefully through the air. It made a series of incredible spins, darting through the weightless space like a bird in flight. The crowd was entranced, their eyes locked on the alien as it glided toward the hoop. With a flick of its wings, it threw the ball, a perfect arc that sailed through the air and slammed into the net with ease. The crowd erupted into applause, the stadium shaking with the force of their cheers. Marcus watched from the sidelines, his heart sinking slightly. That was the level of skill he was up against. This alien had made it look effortless, like the ball was always meant to land in the hoop. It was humbling. But Marcus didn't have time to feel sorry for himself. The game was still moving, and there was still a chance for him to prove himself. He wasn't going to let that perfect shot be his only moment. He had to keep pushing. He had to keep fighting. The ball floated back to him, and he gripped it tightly. His fingers were slick with sweat, his mind racing through the next steps. What did he need to do to make the next shot? What if it wasn't perfect this time? What if he missed? His doubts crept back in, but he shook them off. The aliens didn't know how it felt to keep fighting after 1,000 failures. They didn't know what it was like to push through when every part of you was telling you to quit. But Marcus did. He had always known. He glanced up at the hoop again, the same hoop that had seemed so far away when he first stepped into the arena. It was still distant, still unreachable in some ways. But now it didn't seem as impossible. He had made one shot. He could make another. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The countdown echoed in his ears. Marcus pushed off once more, the ball floating in front of him as he propelled himself toward the center of the arena. This time it felt different. His movements were smoother, more controlled. He wasn't thinking about the aliens, about their perfection. He wasn't even thinking about the crowd. His only focus was the ball, the hoop, and the space between them. With one deep breath, Marcus launched himself toward the hoop, his muscles straining as he pushed through the air. The ball spun in his hand, weightless and steady, waiting for the perfect moment. As he reached the apex of his jump, he saw it. The exact angle, the perfect line. He could feel it in his bones. Marcus released the ball. For a moment, it felt like time itself stopped. The ball floated through the air, following its perfect trajectory toward the hoop. It was too far to tell, too far for him to know for sure. But his heart told him it was right. The arena was silent. The ball hovered just above the hoop, spinning ever so slightly. Marcus held his breath. It dropped. The ball swished through the net with a soft, satisfying sound. The crowd's roar exploded around him, this time not with disbelief but with admiration. Marcus couldn't help but grin. The feeling was like nothing he had ever experienced before. He had done it again. But there was no time to celebrate. He had made another shot, yes, but the competition wasn't over. The game was still going, and the other athletes were right there beside him. He wasn't the only one with skill. He wasn't the only one with talent. The pressure was still on. But for the first time since he had stepped into this arena, Marcus felt a sense of calm. The fear, the doubt, the overwhelming sense of not belonging, those things were slipping away. They didn't matter anymore. He had proven something to himself, and maybe that was enough. Still, Marcus knew he couldn't stop here. Not after all he had been through. Not after all the hard work. He wasn't done yet. The crowd was cheering wildly. His heart was still racing, but now it was different. It wasn't fear anymore. It wasn't doubt. It was something else, a quiet, steady confidence that he had never known before. One more shot, just one more. He steadied himself, his eyes locked on the hoop, his hands firm on the ball. It was his turn to finish this. And this time, nothing was going to stop him. The crowd's cheers still echoed in Marcus's ears, but he couldn't let them distract him. The moment had passed. He had made 2 perfect shots, but he wasn't done yet. The tournament wasn't won by 1 or 2 lucky shots. The other competitors were still out there, still performing at their highest level, and Marcus knew he had to keep pushing. One misstep, one slip, and he could lose everything. As he hovered in the center of the arena, the next alien competitor, a massive creature with 6 arms and glowing red eyes, prepared for its turn. It was from the world of Artalos, known for their incredible strength and lightning-fast reflexes. The crowd hushed as the alien floated effortlessly toward the hoop, its 6 arms moving with precise coordination. In the blink of an eye, it released the ball with an impossible speed and angle. The ball sailed toward the hoop, spinning with incredible force. The shot was a blur. The crowd erupted in a roar of admiration. There was no doubt it was going in. The ball slammed into the net with a powerful thud. Marcus watched it all, his heart pounding. This was the kind of athlete he was up against. This was the level of skill he was competing against. The crowd's applause for the Artalo's competitor shook the arena. Marcus's hands tightened around the ball in his grasp, his fingers starting to burn with the pressure. But he couldn't back down. He floated back to the center of the court, his body feeling heavier with each passing moment. The earlier shots felt like a distant memory. He had made them, yes, but it wasn't enough. He was in the game now, and he had to prove himself all over again. He had to do what the others had done, make another perfect shot, and then another until the game was his. The countdown began again, and Marcus pushed off, his body moving through the weightless air. His mind was clear, but his heart was still racing. He focused on the ball, the hoop, and nothing else. Everything around him seemed distant. All that mattered now was the next shot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Marcus launched himself toward the hoop, feeling the familiar weightlessness of the arena take over. His body twisted midair, using the momentum from his push to guide him closer to the basket. The ball floated before him, steady in his grip. The hoop seemed miles away, but Marcus didn't think about the distance. He didn't think about the competition or the pressure. He thought only about the shot. As he reached the apex of his jump, Marcus saw the line, the perfect angle, the perfect release. It was the same way he had practiced, the same way he had imagined it thousands of times during his training. His body knew what to do now. It wasn't just his mind. His muscles had learned the rhythm of the zero gravity, and they were finally working in harmony. With one final push, Marcus released the ball. The crowd held its breath. Marcus watched as the ball flew through the air. He could see it. He could feel it. It was a perfect shot, a clean arc, no wobble. The ball was on course. For a split second, time seemed to slow. The world around him fell silent, as if the entire universe was holding its breath. The ball neared the hoop, and Marcus's heart thundered in his chest. It was going in, he knew it. But then a shockwave rippled through the arena. A massive alien, its huge body blocking the path, reached out and stretched its arm toward the ball. Marcus's stomach dropped. The creature's hand shot toward the ball, its fingers brushing against the surface. The ball wobbled. It veered off course, a tiny shift. For a moment it seemed as though it would miss. Everything in Marcus's body screamed to do something, to react, but he couldn't. He was helpless, watching as the ball danced on the edge of failure. Then, with a heart-stopping bounce, the ball hit the rim. It spun wildly, its trajectory uncertain. But Marcus didn't look away. He couldn't. He had come too far. His hands gripped the air, his focus locked onto the spinning ball, praying it wouldn't miss. The ball danced around the rim, moving slowly, teasing. The crowd was silent. His breath was ragged in his chest, his mind scrambling for any kind of hope. And then, with a soft swish, the ball dropped through the net. The arena exploded into chaos. Marcus didn't move. He stayed frozen in midair, staring at the hoop, unable to process what had just happened. The crowd roared with excitement, but it sounded distant, like a wave crashing on the shore. He had made it. Again. For a moment, he felt weightless in more ways than one. He wasn't just floating in space. He felt like he was floating in something bigger, something that had nothing to do with the game. It was the realization that, for just a moment, he had beaten the odds. The announcer's voice echoed across the arena. Another perfect shot. Marcus Carter from Earth does it again. The cheers were deafening now. The crowd was on their feet, shouting, clapping, and whistling. Even the alien competitors looked at him with a new kind of respect in their eyes. But Marcus didn't hear any of it. He was already focused on the next shot. The game wasn't over yet. He had proven himself, yes, but he wasn't done. He wasn't finished. Not yet. One more shot, one more victory. This was his moment, and he wasn't about to let it slip away. The crowd's cheers echoed around Marcus, but they felt distant, almost unreal. His body was buzzing with adrenaline, his heart still racing, but he couldn't let himself feel it. Not yet. The moment was fleeting, and there was still work to do. The game wasn't over. He had made his shots, yes, but so had the others. The competition was fierce, and each one of them was hungry for victory. They were the best of their kind, practiced, skilled, and relentless. And then there was him. A human, the underdog, the one who had no right to be here. But Marcus had earned his place. He had proven that, and he wasn't about to back down now. His eyes flickered over to the scoreboard. The numbers were close, too close. He was still in the game, but the others were catching up fast. The pressure weighed down on him, a heavy presence that wrapped around his chest and squeezed. He had come this far, but now was when it counted the most. His next opponent, a sleek, silver-skinned alien with glowing yellow eyes, glided forward. This one was quick, lightning fast, known for its incredible agility and ability to make shots from any angle. The creature's arms were long and fluid, moving like water. The crowd held its breath as it began its approach. Marcus watched, his pulse quickening. The alien twisted and spun midair, its body a blur as it made its way toward the hoop. It released the ball, sending it on a sharp, almost impossible path. The ball cut through the air, the force behind it nearly causing a sonic boom. It hit the rim with a violent clash, but in the end it swished through the net. The crowd went wild. Marcus swallowed hard, staring at the ball as it settled in the net. That was the kind of shot he was up against. That was what he was facing, an opponent who could bend the very laws of motion with ease. The scoreboard flashed again, and Marcus could feel the weight of it. The aliens weren't just good, they were flawless. They had no weaknesses, no doubts, but Marcus had one thing they didn't. He had the heart of a human, and that, he told himself, had to be enough. The announcer's voice broke through his thoughts. Next up, Marcus Carter from Earth. He pushed off from the ground, his body jerking slightly as the gravity-less space took hold of him. The ball floated in front of him, waiting. Marcus grabbed it with both hands, his fingers trembling slightly. His body was exhausted, sore from the effort of the previous shots. His muscles ached, and the burn in his chest reminded him of every second of struggle he'd endured. The countdown began. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Marcus pushed forward, launching himself toward the hoop. This was it. No more hesitation. He couldn't afford to think about the pressure. He couldn't afford to think about anything except that hoop, the ball, and the clean arc he had to make. He wasn't going to back down. Not now, not after everything. His body twisted midair, his arms reaching forward as he adjusted his aim. His mind was clear, sharp. There was only the shot, only the goal. He released the ball with a smooth motion, his heart pounding as he watched it fly. It wasn't the most graceful shot he'd ever taken. It wasn't the most powerful, but it was his shot, and that's all that mattered. The ball floated toward the hoop, a perfect line. The crowd was silent, holding its breath. It was so close, so close. Marcus watched, his gaze locked on the ball as it neared the basket. And then, with a soft swish, it dropped through the net. For a second, everything stopped. The world seemed to hold its breath, and then the stadium erupted. The cheers were deafening. The crowd was on their feet, clapping and shouting, as if they had all been holding their breath with him. Marcus floated there in the zero gravity, the ball spinning gently in his hands, his heart hammering in his chest. He had done it, another perfect shot, another moment of victory. But even as the crowd cheered, Marcus didn't feel the rush of triumph. Not fully. There was still one more shot to make, one more moment that could determine the outcome of this battle. He had proven himself once already, but this wasn't just about proving himself anymore. It was about winning. He wasn't just a human in a game meant for aliens. He was here to fight for something bigger than himself. He was here to show that no matter where you came from, no matter how many obstacles stood in your way, you could always find a way to stand tall, to rise above. Marcus pushed off again, his body moving through the air like a bird, every muscle working in perfect harmony. He didn't think about the aliens around him. He didn't think about their judgment or their perfect moves. He focused only on the next shot, the next moment, and what it would mean. The hoop was waiting. And he was ready. He wasn't just going to make a shot, he was going to win. The arena felt different now. The energy in the air was thick, crackling with the excitement of the crowd. Marcus could feel it, every eye on him, the weight of the moment pressing down. His chest heaved as he floated in the center of the court, his heart pounding like a drum in his ears. It had all led to this, the final shot. He had made it this far. Against the odds, against beings born and bred for this moment, Marcus had proven himself time and time again. But now, as the final countdown began, he knew this was where everything would be decided. One shot, one chance to make history. The scoreboard flashed before his eyes, 49-48. The alien he had been up against, Xyler, a towering creature from the planet Xiphos, had just made a near-impossible shot. The crowd's cheers were deafening, but Marcus didn't hear them. His eyes were locked on the hoop, his body already moving toward it. He had to focus. He couldn't let the pressure get to him. He couldn't let the cheers, the eyes on him, or the fear of failure distract him. This was his moment, and he would not let it slip away. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the countdown blared. Marcus pushed off, his body slicing through the weightless air with a determination he had never felt before. His mind was clear, his focus sharp. The hoop was in his sights, but the distance didn't matter. The only thing that mattered now was making the shot. Xyler hovered nearby, its four arms floating in perfect coordination, watching Marcus with a curious intensity. The creature's glowing blue eyes were full of respect now, but there was still a sense of rivalry, of challenge. Marcus could feel it in the way Xyler moved, its every motion an attempt to unnerve him. But Marcus didn't flinch. He wasn't here for Xyler. He wasn't here to compete with anyone but himself. The ball was floating in front of him, just like it had so many times before. This time, he could feel the weight of it. This time, he knew it had to be perfect. He reached out, his fingers brushing the ball. His breath was slow, measured. He could hear the distant roar of the crowd, but it felt like background noise. His body knew what to do. His arms, his legs, his core, they had all trained for this. He wasn't thinking about anything else but that one perfect shot. Marcus pushed himself higher, rising through the air with an effortless grace he had never felt before. His body was light, weightless, free. As he reached the apex of his jump, he could see everything clearly, the hoop, the ball, and his own reflection in the smooth surface of the arena. He released the ball. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The arena, the crowd, even the stars beyond the stadium. It was just him and the ball. The world felt suspended in time. The ball floated toward the hoop, spinning gently in the air. Marcus held his breath as he watched it glide. The distance felt impossibly long, but the trajectory felt right. This was the moment. This was the shot. His heart hammered in his chest, each beat echoing in his ears. The ball neared the hoop, a thin line between success and failure. It was so close. And then, it swished through the net. The crowd exploded. The sound was deafening. The noise of the stadium, the roar of the fans, the thrill of victory. Marcus's legs trembled beneath him as he hovered in the air, staring at the hoop, still in disbelief. He had done it. He had made the final shot, against all the odds, against all the expectations. He had won. He floated there, motionless for a few seconds, as the weight of the moment settled on him. The other competitors, alien beings who had once seemed so untouchable, now watched him with a mixture of awe and respect. Marcus had proven that a human could stand alongside them, that a human could compete, that a human could win. The announcer's voice rang through the arena, barely audible over the roar of the crowd. And with that, Marcus Carter from Earth takes the title, the first human to ever win the intergalactic Zero-G ball tournament. The arena shook with applause. The stadium lights flashed, and for a moment it felt as though the entire galaxy had been watching. Marcus's chest swelled with pride, but there was no time to savor the victory. Not yet. He wasn't just here to win for himself. He was here for every human who had ever been told they couldn't do something, who had ever been told they weren't good enough. He had done this for them, for every person who had ever fought against the odds, who had refused to give up, no matter how impossible the challenge seemed. He had shown them all that humans weren't weak, humans weren't inferior. Humans had something the others, something they could never take away. Heart. Marcus floated down to the ground, his feet touching the floor for the first time in what felt like forever. The crowd continued to cheer, but Marcus barely heard them. His thoughts were already drifting back to Earth, back to his family, back to the long years of training, of sacrifice. It had all led to this, and he had done it. He wasn't just a human, he was a champion. And the galaxy would never forget his name. The arena was still alive with noise. The crowd's cheers echoed in every corner of Marcus's mind as he stood there, still floating in the center of the court. His heart was still pounding, his body trembling with the aftermath of the intense rush. It felt like a dream, something he could hardly believe. But the truth was clear now, he had won. His eyes wandered over the alien competitors, each one still hovering in the zero-G space. Their faces, once full of smug confidence, had changed. There was respect in their gazes now. They weren't just staring at a human who had somehow gotten lucky, they were looking at a champion. The first human to ever stand in their arena and the first to walk away with victory. Marcus blinked as if trying to clear his mind. He couldn't focus on the praise, on the thousands of eyes upon him. This wasn't about them, it was about something deeper. Something that had burned in his chest from the first day he set foot on the training grounds. He had come here to show the galaxy that humans at heart, that we could fight, that we were not to be overlooked, and now he had done it. The announcer's voice cut through the noise, booming across the stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, beings of every world, we have witnessed history today. Marcus Carter from Earth has done the impossible. He is the first human ever to win the intergalactic Zero-G ball tournament. The words felt surreal. Marcus's eyes closed for a moment, letting the weight of them wash over him. His body, still suspended in the Zero-G, felt lighter now, free from the tension and nerves that had held him captive just moments before. He had done it. The crowd's roars intensified, but it was the sight of his fellow competitors that struck him the hardest. Xyler, the towering creature from Xiphos, approached him slowly, its 6 muscular arms moving with fluid grace. It had been the most intimidating presence in the tournament, but now, as it extended one of its arms, Marcus felt no fear, only respect. Xyler spoke in its deep, resonant voice. "You have earned our respect, human." The words felt genuine. Marcus nodded, his throat tight. For the first time, he saw in Xyler's eyes the same thing he had seen in his own reflection, not a competitor, but a fellow athlete. One by one, the other competitors followed, each one offering some form of acknowledgement, a nod, a gesture, a quiet, respectful salute. They might have been born with abilities that made them perfect for this kind of competition, but in that moment, Marcus realized he wasn't just a human in their eyes anymore. He was one of them. The lights in the arena dimmed as the trophy was brought forward, a magnificent creation, glowing with energy from the stars themselves. It hovered in front of Marcus, shining with the brilliance of victory. The crowd grew silent once more as the trophy was lowered into his hands. It wasn't just a symbol of his victory. It was a symbol of everything he had fought for, every bruise, every moment of self-doubt, every time he had fallen and gotten back up again. It was a symbol of humanity's strength, of the heart that powered every step he took, every shot he made. He raised the trophy above his head, and for a moment the stadium went still. Then the eruption came. The crowd, a wave of voices and cheers, shook the arena once more. But Marcus was no longer just focused on the applause. His eyes were fixed on the stars through the transparent walls of the arena. It was a strange feeling, knowing that his name would now be heard across the galaxy, that every planet, every alien race would know what a human had done here today. He thought of Earth, of his family, of the people who had never believed this was possible. He thought of his mother who had told him he could achieve anything, no matter how impossible it seemed. He thought of his friends back home who had laughed when he told them he was going to the tournament. But now, as the noise of the crowd settled into a hum, Marcus realized something important. This wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about showing them that no matter how small we seemed, no matter what others thought of us, humans could rise to greatness. He wasn't just a winner today, he was a symbol that anything was possible. He turned back toward the competitors, still floating in the weightless space, and saw the admiration in their eyes. They were no longer judging him. They were witnessing something greater than they could have ever imagined. Marcus didn't need their approval anymore. He didn't need anyone's approval. He had earned it the hard way. The first human to win the intergalactic Zero-G ball tournament. And as he slowly began to descend back toward the ground, Marcus Carter knew that this moment would live forever, not just in the history books, but in the hearts of every person who had ever dared to believe that they could reach for the stars.